the right order here. Yeah, I have lots of, this is a complicated shear. I'm telling you guys right now, this is a complicated shear. It's one of my most complicated shiurim. This is one of the most complicated shiurim that I've come up with. It's also, incidentally, for me, one of my oldest shiurim. Developed this shiur a very long time ago. I was still in Kolo. And I have to figure out what I got here. I had a strange day today. I couldn't find my notes for this shiur, and it's a very complicated shiur. It's not, a lot of my shiurim are in my head, or they don't have too many notes. I can just sort of give them. And this year, even though I've given it a few times, I really need my notes, and I couldn't find my notes anywhere. All my files, couldn't find them. So I actually went to the computer and I went online, where there's I gave the shiur like 3 years ago, and it's up online. So I watched myself give the shiur, and I took notes. So I'd have the notes, but. And then when I was getting out all the books that I need, one of the books was folded up, all my notes for the shiur. So I wasted my time watching myself give the shiur. Okay, we're going to start with the Zohar. Oh, actually, we should start with the Pesukim. Let's start with the Pesukim. Good place to start, okay? Very strange section in this week's parsha. Very odd. Almost as odd as that Medrash, but it's very pretty weird Medrash, no? Yeah, very weird. Okay. So here are the Pesukim in question. Okay. So get a handle on these. Here we go. He fights with the Malach, and in the fighting with the Malach, it says, well, here it is. Vayivater Yaakov lavado. Yaakov was left by himself. Vayavek ish imo adolot hashachar, and a man, which becomes clear. You don't need Chazal. It becomes clear from the Pesukim that this is not a normal man. There's a supernatural kind of conversation they have. The guy names him Yisrael. It's not what men do. So it's pretty obvious. This is one of the places where you don't need Chazal to tell you that it's a Malach. Vayivater Yaakov lavado ish imo adolot hashachar until morning. Vayar ki lo yachol lo, and he, the man, saw that he could not overcome Yaakov. Vayiga b'chaf yirecho. We're going to read very carefully here. And he made contact. He made contact with the kaf yarech. Now, what is the kaf yarecho? Well, no, that's the gid hanashe. The kaf yarech, the palm, the socket of his thigh, right? Because like if you, the truth is when you're sitting, it's very easy to identify where that is because it's at that. It's like the seam sort of. If you can use a word like that, like where we're sitting here, that's where the thigh connects to the pelvic bone. The socket, the kaf. A kaf is a or a palm. Okay, it's something shaped like this is a kaf. That's why spoons are called kafs or ladles, and that's why a hand is called a kaf. The palm of your hand is called a kaf because it has a natural dip, whatever it's called. Convex, whatever, a kaf. Concave. It's naturally concave. It's a kaf. So the kaf hayarech is the socket of the thigh, which also makes sense from what the injury is then described as. So as a result of this, vateka kaf yarech Yaakov. Yaakov's thigh became disconnected. Vateka means it became dislocated or disconnected. So his thigh came out of its socket as a result of this injury, disconnected thigh. Behei avko imo, in fighting with him. So he says, leave me, no, give me a bracha, okay, your name's Yaakov, your name's Yisrael. Let's jump to the end. Vayizrach lo hashemesh. This is the next morning. The sun shone for him. Kasher avar Penuel, as he left Penuel. That's where this happened. And he was limping on his thigh. Or because, al can mean because of. We don't have to be medayik in the physical gait of Yaakov. Al kain, therefore, here's the pasuk that really, really interests us. Al kain, lo yochlu b'nei Yisrael at gid hanashe. Therefore, b'nei Yisrael do not eat the gid hanashe. Asher al kaf hayarech. Now, why not? Why the sciatic nerve? Therefore, we don't eat the sciatic nerve. That is by the. That's where it runs through. It runs through the thigh socket. It runs from the upper part of the pelvis down through the thigh down to the leg. So it runs through the thigh. Ada Yom Zeh. We don't eat it till today. Ki naga. Now it just said al kain, therefore we don't eat it. So you don't have to say a because. Therefore we don't eat the gid hanashe, which is in the Kafei Yarech, because ki naga b'Kafei Yarech Yaakov b'gid hanashe, because he hit the thigh socket of Yaakov b'gid hanashe. Okay, so there's this like a heavy stress here. Here in the pasuk, like he's limping. Therefore, Bnei Yisrael don't eat the gid hanashe, which is on the Kafei Yarech, because he hit him in the Kafei Yarech. I know why at this point. It says it like 4 times. Okay, question number 1. Peculiarity number 1. We have a mitzvah in Sefer Bereshis. That's weird. But to deepen the strangeness of this, why do we have a mitzvah that is commemorating a story in Sefer Bereshis? We don't have mitzvahs that commemorate stories in Chumash. In Sefer Bereshis, we don't have a mitzvah that commemorates, like Yaakov stealing the brachas from Esav, like where we all like put fur on our necks and stuff. We don't like eat lentils on every parshas toldos or something. Like there's no mitzvah that commemorates the Akedah. We don't have mitzvahs that commemorate events, and there's lots and lots of stories and very important stories in Sefer Bereshis. For some reason, this story is getting commemorated by a mitzvah. Now, furthermore, to sweeten the pot a little bit more with the questions, why is this the appropriate mitzvah to commemorate this? That we don't eat the sciatic nerve because he dislocated his thigh. And if he poked him in the eye, there would be some mitzvah having to do with the eyes. And if he broke his arm, we'd have some mitzvah having to do with the arms. Like, if he's struggling with a malach and we want to commemorate that, why is it so important that the particular injury, like they're fighting, and like if he bent his thumb out of place, that we'd have some thumb thing that we would, like why don't we davka eat the sciatic nerve as a way of commemorating it? Like, the whole thing's a little bit odd. So it's odd that we have a mitzvah commemorating a story. Does everyone agree that that's strange? Yeah. Number 2. Once we're commemorating the story, why do we actually care to commemorate it by commemorating the location of the particular wound that he suffered in the story? Okay? So, there we go. We have our questions. The Gid HaNasheh. There is a Zohar. Now we'll go to the Zohar. Here we go. Zohar in Parshas Vayishlach says as follows: Al kain lo yochlu b'nei Yisrael gid hanashe v'gomer, etc. So quotes the pasuk. Therefore, we don't need to gid hanashe. Ki naga b'Kafei Yarech Yaakov b'gid hanashe, because he made contact with the thigh socket of Yaakov b'gid hanashe. Afilu b'hana aser. It's even aser b'hana. B'gid hanashe, you're not even have any benefit from it. Afilu liyave l'kalba, even to give it to your dog. You're not allowed to feed your dog with it because you get some financial benefit from it. You can't have any benefit from the gid hanashe. Va'amai ikri gid hanashe. That's a real Zohar kind of question. Why is it called the gid hanashe? Why is it called the gid hanashe? Why is that the name of this thing? Kolomar is to say, Gid de'ihu min nashe livnei nasha mipulchanan de mareha. It's a way of saying that it's a sinew, it's a gid, a sinew, that it is min nashe people from the service of their master, from God, from the service of their Creator. So what does the word min nashe mean? What is the word min nashe? That's what it does. So it's a verb. Can anyone think of anywhere else in the Chumash where the shoresh nun shin hey nasha appears? Kiva. The name Menashe. Very good. What? Nope. The name Menashe. That's the only other place. Now, why does Yosef name Menashe Menashe? He says, Yosef says why. He says, Vayikra Shmo Menashe Ki Nashani Elokim Kol Amali. Beit David. Something like that. Nashani, what does Nashani mean in that pasuk? It means that Hashem has made me forget all of the trouble of my father's house. The shoresh nun shin hey nasha actually means is a biblical way of saying forgetting. Okay, to remove something from your mind completely. Okay, because it's another word for forgetting. Min nashe means that which makes you forget. What Yosef was saying when he named Menashe was that now that I've achieved some success, I can put my past behind me. Forgotten about all the trouble I went through because things are better now. So what it means here is that this is a gid that causes people to forget. It's min nashe. It removes people. It removes people from remembering service of their Creator. Zohar goes on, v'taman hu yetzer hara revia, and that's where the yetzer hara crouches. The yetzer hara like hangs out in the gid hanashe. Okay, pretty weird. And then I'm going to skip a little bit in the Zohar. We get Hanasha mitakiv li yetzer hara hu duhuzaine. It feeds the yetzer hara. Bnei Yisrael aren't supposed to eat it because the yetzer hara is there. I want to get into some other stuff here. Here we go. Begin. Listen carefully now. De'it bevar nash 248 shaifin. People have 248 bones. The kava 248 pikudin. In order to accept, in order to receive the 248 pikudin deoraita, the 248 positive commandments of the Torah. Okay? Everyone with me? Alright, and you're still here? Because they were done, they were given to us to do. So we do them with our bones, with our limbs. And so that we could receive the 248 angels that are enclosed in these 248 mitzvot. And they all have names like the names of their master. Very nice. The people have 365 sinews. And through those 365 sinews, we can receive the 365 negative commandments, right? The things that were given to us to not do. 365 laws through our 365 sinews. By the way, I didn't read this whole Zohar in the recorded version that's up online. Ulakavel, maybe we'll replace it with this one, just in case you would. Ulakavel, 356 Yomei Shata, and to receive the 365 days of the year. Now that's in the solar year, right? The Jewish calendar doesn't have 365. Vaha. So you're going to have to suspend your belief here for a second because they're going to start talking about Jewish dates. Don't put that in front of the camera. Start talking about Jewish dates, even though they're talking about 365 days in the year. So you just have to sort of let the Zohar play its game. Okay? Don't start asking too many technical questions. It's Zohar. Remember, it has its own logic. Or lack thereof. Okay. Vaha Tisha B'Av Chad Minha. Tisha B'Av is one of those 365 days. Diyu L'Kabal Sama, which is, related to Samael, who's an angel who conceals God's presence. Okay. Diyu Chad Me'inun 356 Malachim. He's one of the 365 negative malachim. Okay. And that's why the Torah said, don't eat the gid hanashe. Right? Okay. Let's go. Tisha B'Av. Et, the word et always includes something. Ready for this? We learned today, Rav Shatter said, right, that the word et always includes something. So what does the word et include? Et, la'asga, l'rabot, to include Tisha B'Av. D'lo achlin bei v'lo shatin. So, don't eat the gid hanashe ever on 365 days of the year. What's lo yachlu et gid hanashe that you shouldn't eat on Tisha B'Av? This is the Zohar. The Zohar says that the et in the pasuk, not to eat et gid hanashe, is to teach us that you're not allowed to eat and drink on Tisha B'Av.
Like a Gemara got it.
Right. Uvegin kach. Because through this we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw everything. V'nir mazbon remez liYaakov b'chol yom eshata. We have a remez that Yaakov was struggling with the man every day of the year. Uvechol shaifin, with all his bones, all the bones of Yaakov. V'lo ashkach bar hahu gid hanashe. Miyad Tosha Shcheda Yaakov. Okay, the only one the guy could get was the Gid Hanashe. Yaakov became weak. Uviyome Shata Ashkach Yom Tisha B'Av. And in the days of the year, there's Tisha B'Av, and on that day, Yaakov was attacked. And that's why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed that day. And listen to this last line I'm going to read to you. B'chol man de'achil b'Tisha B'Av, ki'ilu achil gid hanashe. And anyone who eats on Tisha B'Av, it's like he ate a gid hanashe. All right, this is a weird thing. Let me just summarize what happened here in the Zohar. The Zohar said that, first of all, why is it called gid hanashe? Because it is a gid that causes people to forget service of their creator. And then it said that the Yetzer Hara hangs out there. And then it says that there are 365 sinews in the body. Those 365 sinews in the body correspond to 365 negative commandments and 365 days in the year. Gid Hanashe somehow corresponds to Tisha B'Av. Okay? And that the day that Yaakov was attacked by the Malach, fought with the Malach, was Tisha B'Av. And because of that wound, there was a Gzeira then, because of Yaakov's weakness, Chalash, Gocho. That's where the Churban was caused by. And anyone who eats a Gid Hanashe, everyone who eats on Tisha B'Av is like he ate a Gid Hanashe. Now, why do you have to say anyone who ate on Tisha B'Av is like he ate a Gid Hanashe? Like, anyone who ate on Tisha B'Av, he ate on Tisha B'Av. Like, if I want to say something that's not technically wrong, is like something that's wrong, I'll say, that's like you did this. When people say things like, speaking Lashon Hara is worse than the 3 most serious of errors. It's like, it's a chiddush because like you don't think of it as, and it's really an exaggeration. It's not literally as bad as the 3 major errors. It's not Yahar Vayava. Okay? But what's this comparison? You eat on Tisha B'Av, it's like you had to get a Nashe. Okay, what exactly does that mean? Alright. So at this point we're thoroughly confused. We have questions in Pshat from Chumash. We don't know what this Zohar is talking about. And I think this year's not over yet. Okay. Now, I'd like to talk about the word Yarech. The word Yarech appeared a whole bunch of times. And then later on, it keeps mentioning that it's a Kaf HaYarech. It doesn't just mention the Gid Hanashe. Each time it says Gid Hanashe, it says Gid Hanashe Asher Al Kaf HaYarech. The word Yarech is interesting. Like, Chazi, stop leaning back on the chair. No, just stop it. Okay? Thank you. Alright, the word Yarech is an interesting word. It appears elsewhere in the Torah on many occasions as a euphemism for the reproductive organ. Like for instance, in Parshat Vayigash and also in Parshat Shmot and also in numerous other places in Tanakh, offspring of a person are called Yotzei Yerech. Right, like in Parshat Vayigash, when Yaakov, when they're about to list the 70 people who go down to Mitzrayim, right? And it says that there's 70 people there, right? So what does it say? What does it call them? Right at the end of this, right?
Who cares whether it's one robe or 5? The king's inside of it.
Yeah, here we go. Kol hanefesh haba Mitzrayim yotzei Yerecho novad neshev bnei Yaakov kol nefesh 66. All of the people coming down with Yaakov to Mitzrayim, all of those who are yotzei Yerecho, literally who emerged from his thigh. Now everyone knows that don't make babies with their thighs. The Torah's euphemism. You don't say yerech. This is also seen, the euphemism of yerech to the private parts is seen also quite starkly in a Rashi in Parshat Chayei. In Parshat Chayei, Avram Avinu sends his servant, the elder of his household, who Chazal tells us is Eliezer, to go get a wife for Yitzchak. And right before he sends him, he makes him swear. Right? Makes him swear that he's going to do everything he tells him. And the pasuk says, "Vayomer Avram el Avdo zakan beito mashov v'chol." And Avram said, excuse me, to his servant, the elder of his household, who governed over everything that he had. He was, the head butler. Simna yadcha tachat yirechi. Place your hand under my thigh. Under my thigh. So what is that? Why is he placing his hand under his thigh? He's taking an oath. Put your hand under my thigh and take this oath. So Rashi says there, Lefisha hanishba tzarich litol biyado chefetz shel mitzvah. Since a person taking an oath has to hold in his hand an object of mitzvah, you could go in Sefer Torah, tefillin, put your hand on the Bible, right? You have to hold the Sefer Torah or tefillin. You can hold your tefillin to take a shvuah and Beit Din. Mila hayta mitzvah rishona lo. Mila was the only mitzvah he had. So, and it came through a lot of pain by Tachavivalav, and therefore it was a very dear mitzvah to him. So Eliezer held on to the Makom Hamila. He held on to his privates to take this oath because it was a Chetz Shel Mitzvah. It was an object of mitzvah. Again, the Torah is using the phrase Tachat Yirechi, and it's as a and Lefi Chazal, Lefi Rashi here, that euphemism, it really refers to that he was holding on to his private parts. So you see, this is not as strong a raya. But we're talking in drush anyway. But you see that very freely, both in Chazal and in the psukim, in the phrase for children, yotzei yerech, those who emerge from the thigh, that the word thigh carries with it a connotation. It's as a motif. That word carries with it the connotation of the reproductive organ. Okay? That's interesting. The Ramban, on this week's on the pasuk in question about the Gid Hanashe, or actually in the battle where it says Vayiga b'kaf Rirvan, he hit him in the socket of the thigh. The Ramban says as follows. Here we go. V'amru b'Bereishis Rabbi quotes a medrash that says, "Naga b'chol hatzadikim shatidin liyot mimenu." That when he hit him there, he hit all the tzadikim that were going to come out of him. Zed doro shel shmad, and this is what produced the generations of shmad. Shmad is generations where Jews are leaving Judaism. There are certain generations in Jewish history where more Jews are leaving. Most of the shmads before the modern time were forced or dangerous. Think like Spain or the Crusades. Jews were fleeing because of the danger. But also it was hard to be a Jew. It was easier to mix in. Or because of assimilation in places where it was comfortable for the Jews. And that's Doro Shel Shmad. So this wound, according to this medrash, produced Dor Shel Shmad. V'ha'inyan, the matter is as follows, says the Ramban. Ki ha'me'ura kulo remez l'dorotav. This entire event, this strange event, was a remez, was a hint for the generations. Sheyeh dor b'zaro shel Yaakov. That there will be a generation of the offspring of Yaakov sometime in the future. Yitgaber Esav alehem ad sheyeh karov l'kakeh bitzatan. That Esav will overpower them so much that they will almost, what a fascinating phrase the Ramban uses, l'ka'akeya, which means to uproot or destroy, Beit Satan. They're beitzim, their testicles. Why is the Ramban using that phrase? That there will be a time when they'll almost wipe us out. Why is he using such a strange phrase? Because of the Yerech, exactly. Mishnah says this was a door with the Romans in the times of the Mishnah. Kedosh Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava b'Chavera. Ukmosha Amru Amr B'chia Baraba Im Yomer Li Adam Tein Nafshach Al Kedusha Shemo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ani Notein V'Bat Sheyarguni Miyad. They had a lot of meaning. Dying Al Kiddush Hashem was a normal thing. You think about the Asara Harugi Malchut, the 10 rabbis who were killed by the Romans. Aval b'doro shel shmad eini yachol lizbol, but I can't live in the dor shel shmad. Uma yu osim b'dor shel shmad ayu mevin kaduliyot shel barzel. Starts talking about the terrible tortures. These are things like the Spanish Inquisition, which are after the Ramban. And he says, v'yesh dorot acherim she'esav imanu, shasu imanu kazeh v'yoter ramizeh. And there are other generations where Esav did like that and worse to us. V'kol savalnu v'avar aleinu. That all passed over us and we survived it all. Kamosha Ramaz, as it hinted at in the Psukim, by Yavo Yaakov Shalem, that Yaakov walks off complete and whole. So the Ramban says that this whole story here, once we're getting into Zohars and the deeper level of this, he says this whole story is telling us, and he's quoting Bereshit Rabbah, but as Rav Shechter mentioned today, the Ramban was very into the Zohar. He quotes the Zohar a lot. And the Zohar I read you, it talked about how this is something that set the tone for all the tzaddikim in future generations. It set Tisha B'Av, all the churbans, that this event happened on Tisha B'Av, is the way the Zohar puts it, right? And that was the gzeira of the churbans. And the Ramban's saying that in other generations also, Esav tries to wipe us out and gets close, but we shake it off, and pick ourselves up, and we keep going. Like the Energizer Bunny, We just keep going. That's the Jews. No matter what happens, people try to, and they knock us down, and we take our hits, and we limp a little bit, and then we keep moving. But the phrase the Ramban uses, that they came close to destroying their reproductive organs. I'd like to suggest to you that what the Malach was doing, when the Malach was trying to hit below the belt, he was attacking Yaakov at what produces your offspring, what produces the future. He was going for his reproductive organs. Vayar ki lo yachol lo, but he couldn't knock him out, so he missed. And he hit him right next to that. Kaf Yerech is right there. That's where he hit him. And right next to his privates. The Kaf Yerech. And that's why he didn't, meaning, the Pasuk's way, obviously this whole thing was a very esoteric experience. It's Malach he's wrestling with, Tavki hit him there. Saying that it was close. It's like the Ramban says, Karov l'kakeh, came close. And what's interesting is that the aspect of Esav that hugs and kisses us is one aspect. The aspect of Esav that tries to destroy us is manifested through his lovely grandson, Amalek. When Amalek attacks us, these are jackals. When Amalek attacks us, so the story appears in Bishalach where they attack us, and then in Parsha Kitetse, which is the reading for Parshat Zachor, is where Moshe Rabbeinu is reviewing the story and telling us to remember it, the whole famous piece there. When Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us to remember it and he's retelling the story of Amalek attacking us, he uses a very strange verb to describe Amalek's attack. He says, Vayizanev b'cha kol hanechashalim acharecha. Now what does Vayizanev mean? It's very weird. It's a verb form of the noun zanav. A zanav is a tail. So what does it mean? Vayizanev b'cha. What did Amalek do to us? They tailed us, they attacked us at the tail, because the tail doesn't make sense as a verb in English, because in English the tail someone means to follow them. That's not what we mean. We mean they did something to the tail. Now humans don't have a tail.
Wasn't that referred to the end?
Well, listen to the Medrash Tanchuma. Medrash Tanchuma says as follows: Vayizanev b'cha. Hika otan makat zanav. He hit them a hit at the tail. Ki hadra amar Rabbi Chinan bar Shikla, like that which Rabbi Chinan bar Shikla said. You like weird midrashim? This one's for you. Ma hayu beit Amalek osin. What were the Amalekim? What was the house of Amalek? What were the Amalekim doing when they attacked the Jews? Chotchin milotehen shel Yisrael v'zorkin klapei mala. They were cutting off the bris milas. They were cutting off the privates of the Jews they were attacking, and they were throwing them up towards heaven. V'omrim, and they were saying, like to God, Bezeh bacharta? This is what you wanted? Havei lecha masha bacharta. Here, take what you want. Here. What were they doing? They were cutting off the makom amila, throwing it up to Hashem and saying, take it. So to understand this, we're going to get some help from the Maharal Miprad. The Maharal in his book Tiferet Yisrael, in the 2nd chapter, discusses the mitzvah of bris milah. And he says as follows. He says, Hanagat HaTeva nivra b'shiva yimei breshit. The governance of nature was created in the 7 days of creation. V'lo Torah hi al HaTeva. And Torah is above nature. V'hi madrega shminit. It is the 8th level. Because of that, the longest parak of Tehillim, Ashrei Tmi Mederach, which is all about Torah, Yesh Bo Shmona alphabet. It has 8 alphabets in it. 8 alphabets. You know, each letter of the alphabet has 8 psukim in that parak. Shat Torah Madriga Shmini, because the Torah is 8. It's the 8th level. She al hateva, which represents being above nature. Nature is 7, and it's above nature. It's a theme that repeats itself in many, many places in the Maharal's writings. And 7 represents the completeness of nature, and 8 represents going one beyond that. Okay? So too, anything that is above nature and is a tikkun of that which is in nature comes after 7. And this is why Brit Milah is on the 8th day. Because a person naturally is created with the arla, with the foreskin, and that is the lower level of teva. V'hamila hi tikkun hateva. And the milah is the tikkun of that deficiency of teva. Lefichach tikkun hazeh hu b'yom hashmini. And therefore that tikkun is on the 8th day. Lefishu achar teva, because that 8 is after, because it's above teva, it's beyond teva. What? Well, he doesn't use that phrase. I'm just reading what he wrote. Shenivrei b'sheshem mebreshit. U'me'ata teda ki hamitzvot shem ha'peulot ha'elokiyot ve'maaseh adam yagia b'hem adam l'madriga shu al hateva. From this you should know that the mitzvot, which are godly actions, when man does them, he goes beyond nature. He goes on with this point. The Maharal tends to repeat himself a lot, and he goes on and on about this. That's what this parak is about. He says this a few times. What does Maharal mean? What does Milah represent? A human being has obviously we have a guf and a neshama, and from the standpoint of our guf, we're rather natural. We have natural tendencies. We eat, we sleep, we have relations, we do things that natural beings do. We age. But our goal is not to be natural. People justify, I say this all the time, people justify all kinds of behaviors by saying, it's natural. As though natural is synonymous with okay. Who said? Natural is a low level. Our job in life is not to be natural, isn't it?
and then you live.
There's no such thing as justifying something by saying it's natural. People do it all the time, and it makes no sense to me. It's not our job. Our job isn't to be natural. Our job is to be supernatural, to be above nature, to go beyond nature. That which is natural is a challenge to us, to integrate that into our supernatural framework. Even that which is natural is supposed to be governed by something which isn't necessarily natural. Free will, wisdom. We're supposed to be above nature. The Mila is the greatest representation of that, because what we're doing is we're going to the most natural part of us. The part of us that is basest, that is most connected to even lower than what we'd call emotion. Just it's the most sensitive physically. It's the part that arouses within us the most animal aspects of us. It is the most physical part of the human being, one could say, where people get obsessed with the physical. To the extent that if that area of the body is aroused, the brain doesn't work as effectively. It's a very physical part of us. We probably are no more physical than in that part of the body. And we take that part of the body and we elevate it. And there we declare our supernatural. And it's Davka there because it's our way of saying there's no area of life that is devoid there's no area of life that's too natural to be elevated to above nature. There's no area of life. Religion isn't about Yom Kippur and Shul. Yom Kippur is it's about what goes on in the bedroom, and it's about everything. Spirituality is all-encompassing in life. So we go to the most base levels where it's sensory and it's physical and it taps into our Yetzer Haras, and we say, even there, it's elevated. Amalek has no problem with the existence of God. Amalek are not heretics. They don't deny God's existence. Amalek, they say, we're fine with there being religion. We're fine with there being God. But let's separate. God's not in my bedroom. I want God, I go to church. There's God, I go to shul. God, I come home. There's areas of life that God doesn't touch. That's what Amalek says. Amalek says, spirituality up there, physicality down here. And, there's a God, but he doesn't necessarily get involved in the base areas of life. And that's why, in this funny pasuk by the Macham of Amalek, it says, Ki yad, at the end of the war with Amalek in Bishalach, Ki yad al kes ka, milchama la Hashem b'Amalek, midor dor. It's a war of God with Amalek throughout the generations. The first part of the pasuk says, for the hand is on the throne of God. But the word throne is missing a letter. It's written kes instead of kisei. And the word ka is a two-letter name for God, which appears only twice in the whole Chumash. Both in Parshat V'Shalach. The name ka, the Yud Hey. It's not a name of God that's used in Chumash. So Rashi quotes a famous Chazal there that says, Ein hakisei shalem, ve'ein Hashem shalem. Something like that. Until we defeat Amalek, God's name is not whole. What does that mean, the kisei? The kisei is God's presence resting in this world. It's not complete. And the name of God is not complete. It's not resting in this world unless Amalek is eradicated. That's why it's the first two letters of God's name, Yud Hey, which represents the higher aspects of God. Vav Hey would be the lower aspects of God. It's getting a little bit Kabbalistic at this point. But if you think back to my shir, if anyone was here at the beginning of the year when I gave a shir on the four-letter name of God, the Vav Hey represents the more God coming into this world. So God cannot fully come into this world. His throne is not complete. He can't rest in this world fully as long as Amalek is here. Because what is Amalek? Amalek tries to separate. So he takes that's symbolically being told to us in this wild medrash in the Tanchuma that we read, that they were cutting off the milas and saying, you want this? So fine, but not down here. You want Ala Teva? Ala Teva's up there. Not down here. Here's Teva. Okay? That's a monk. So it's amazing. We look at it. What Amalek was doing to us generations later is the Malach of Esa was trying to do the same thing. trying to go for that part, trying to cut us off at the source of our eternal existence, to cut that off. There's a medrash in the Tana de Be'eliyahu. Tana de Be'eliyahu is a fascinating book of midrashim, and it's divided into two parts: Eliyahu Rabbah, Eliyahu Zuta. And in the Eliyahu Zuta, Perek Tet says as follows: Amru Rabotenu, Ba'od kishahayu Yaakov ve'Esav b'meiman. When Yaakov and Esav were in their mother's tummy, you know the baby's not actually in the stomach, you know, the womb. Everyone's aware of it? You don't know this? Okay, we'll talk. All right. When Yaakov and Esav were in their mother's womb, Amar Yaakov le'Esav. Yaakov said to Esav, I don't even know his name. Whatever. They're in the womb, and Yaakov, you know, and we know that they fought a lot in the womb. We know that from the Psukim, right? So the Medrash tells us a conversation that Yaakov and Esav had when they were in the womb. Yaakov said, Amar Yaakov le'Esav. Yaakov said to Esav, Esav achi, Esav my brother. Shnei achim anachnu la'avinu. We're both our father's kids. We're both brothers. Shnei olamot yesh lefanenu. We have two worlds ahead of us. Olam hazeh v'olam haba. Olam hazeh yesh bo achila, shtiya, masa u'matan, lasei tisha, lo libani u'vanot. He said this world has eating, has drinking, has business, has marriage, has having children. But olam haba doesn't have any of that stuff. If you want, you take olam hazeh, and I'll take olam haba. Otasha, that moment, Natal Esav b'chelko olam hazeh, Yaakov natal b'chelko olam haba. So Yaakov took olam hazeh. I'm sorry, Esav took olam hazeh, and Yaakov took olam haba. Esav likes olam hazeh. He likes this world. We see this also in a medrash, and I mentioned it recently, that when Esav walks in and he says, Hinei anochi holech lamut, behold, I am going to die. Did I mention this recently? What context did I say this? Hinei anochi holech lamut. It was in a sikha. I'm going to die. Lama zeli b'chora. What do I need the b'chora for? Was he really going to die? We know he wasn't going to die. You see at the end of the psukim, he wasn't going to die. He got up, he finished eating, he got up and left. He didn't fall asleep. He wasn't so tired. What did he mean, I'm going to die? He meant, like the Chizkuni says. Chizkuni says, Esav said to him, I'm mortal. I know what the promise is, the Bechorah. The Bechorah is a promise that's not going to come to be for 400 years. You got to spend time being a slave first. What do I need it for? I'm not going to be alive then anyway to see the good part. I'm mortal. So give me the stuff, give me something tangible. I saw today another medrash I'd never seen before in the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. It said that when Yitzchak died, he left everything to be divided among his kids. He had all his wealth. So Esav and Yaakov were about to start negotiating, and Yaakov said, how about this? You take everything, all the wealth, every single thing you took on, I get Eretz Yisrael. So Esav didn't know what to do. He was thinking about it, so he went over to where Yishmael lived, and he asked Yishmael, his old uncle Yishmael, asked him what he thought. And Yishmael said, come on, there's 7 nations living in Canaan. There's 7 nations living there. And he's saying that he's going to get Eretz Yisrael. Give him Eretz Yisrael. It's not his anyway. Take this stuff. Esav says, yeah, takes the stuff. Esav is interested in all of us. Now it's interesting that there's a word that's used twice in the Chumash that appears in the story of Esav. Tired, coming in from the field. It also appears by Amalek attacking us. That is the word ayef. It says that Esav came in from outside. Esav ba min hasadeh v'hu ayef. The only other place that word appears is when it says that when Bnei Yisrael were attacked by Amalek, it says that we were ayef, we were tired. What does it mean to be tired? We're not talking about being tired physically. What does it mean when we say, when we're not talking about physical fatigue, we say someone's tired? I don't want to fight anymore. I want to push through. They're historically impatient. You get tired. I remember Yitzhak Rabin, when he was prime minister, when he entered into the peace process, one of the things that he said in his speech on the White House lawn was that the nation of Israel is tired of fighting wars. I remember thinking to myself, it's one thing to say that we've decided to stop fighting wars, we have no more wars to fight, whatever you want to believe. But to say we're tired? What does tired mean? Means we don't have any more energy for it? Really we should be, but we don't have energy for it? What does that even mean? You understand? You want to say that I'm a peacemaker, fine. I'm not talking politics, right, left. I'm talking, what does it mean to be tired? What do you even mean by that? Tired? What is tired? Tired means that you don't have energy anymore to go on. You don't have energy to continue. As I'll tell us, what is it, how come Moshe Rabbeinu said to Klal Yisrael, Amalek attacked you when you were tired? It says, so what is the lo yireh Elokim going? It's going on Amalek that they didn't fear God, or is it going on us? Because we were tired, we didn't feel God, and that we didn't fear God. The pasuk is ambiguous. When things are ambiguous in the Chumash, it's deliberate. It's not because the writing is bad. When it's ambiguous, it's because they're supposed to be ambiguous. Being tired makes you not see the big picture. When you're tired, and you know this day by day, and you guys are like, you can blow off a day because you're tired. You don't see the big picture when you're tired. That's what giving into fatigue means, that you're just thinking about the here and now, and give me a warm meal, and give me something that I could, give me comfort. That's what tiredness is as a state of mind. It's not being willing to persevere. Yaakov's the opposite of tired. What the Ramban described in that Ramban I read you about the Jews suffering for generations and keeping going and keeping going. They're not tired. The tired ones are part of the Shmad who get lost. Those are the tired ones. They're tired. It's the old expression, Shver zu sein a Yid. It's hard to be a Jew. People are tired. They're tired of it. Being tired leads one to be lo yareh Elokim, to forget God, like the Amalek attack. That's the Gid Hanashe. The Gid that causes us to forget. That's what the Zohar said. That causes us to forget about God. The Gid Hanashe. The Zohar starts that whole kanta by saying, why is the Gid Hanashe called the Gid Hanashe? Because it causes people to forget their Maker. Tell me something. Who in their right mind, what kind of Jew would eat on Tisha B'Av? A Jew who's not engaging in the act of remembering. What is Tisha B'Av all about? Jews, you know how we made it through the Gullus? We're really, 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 really good at remembering. We're the best rememberers in the world. Jews are great at remembering. We make big ceremonies out of remembering all kinds of things. It's like a value. It's a value, remembering, for Jews. Much more so than it is for other cultures. We're very into remembering things. We're told it from a young age. Remember, don't forget, all kinds of things. We're excellent rememberers. We don't just remember, we relive things so that we'll really remember them. T.S. Mitzrayim, everything, right? Jews are amazing rememberers. When you stop remembering, you're up. You're gone. The paradigm, the prototype of a Jew who doesn't remember is a Jew who has no problem eating on Tisha B'Av. So anyone who eats on Tisha B'Av is like from the Gid Hanashe. From the Gid Hanashe. The Gid Hanashe, and we'll end with this. The Gid Hanashe, it's funny, there's a whole parak in Maseches Chulin about the kashrus of the Gid Hanashe, because it's treif, even though from a kosher animal, the Gid Hanashe. There's a whole parak about it, there's weird halachas about the Gid Hanashe. One of the things that's interesting about the Gid Hanashe is that a Gid Hanashe has no flavor. It actually gives off no flavor. And because of that, it creates an interesting, a whole bunch of interesting halacha. There's many, many sugis in Chulin about the fact that the Gid Hanasha gives off no flavor, which causes a glitch in all the halachas of kashrus, because the halachas of kashrus are based on the concept of batal b'shishim. You guys know that. Something's batal in 60. What's batal in 60 based on? That unless something has a very, very strong flavor, like a spice, it generally is drowned out. Halacha determined if there's 60 times the flavor, then you basically can't taste it. Unless it's something that's designed specifically for flavor. And that's why if you had, like, let's say, black pepper that had been used in Avodah Zarah, so it was usher, it was like treif black pepper, it wouldn't be batal b'shishim. Black pepper's not batal b'shishim because it gives flavor 1 in 10,000 is flavor. Batal b'shishim is actually just like a way of determining flavor. So because the Gid Hanasha gives off no flavor, it's actually it's a whole question of, like, does it even treif up what it's cooked in, or you just take it out and eat whatever's left because it didn't give flavor to it anyway. It's a whole discussion there in the Gemara. It's fascinating. So one of the things it says in the Gemara is Ein begidim benotein tam. Gid Hanasha does not have a tam. That's number one. One interesting thing about it. Second thing is it has so little flavor and so little nutritional value that the Gemara calls it eitz ba'alma. It's like a piece of wood. There's nothing. It's not flavorful. Something has flavor. It's alive. It's interesting that the word for flavor and the word for reason are the same word in Hebrew, and in Aramaic, a tam. Something behind it means something. Gid is. It's just eating. It's eating to eat. It's eating without the experience of eating.
Oh my God!
There's a fascinating Rashi on the pasuk Vayizrach lo Hashemesh v'utzalei al yirecho, where it says that this is the morning after Yaakov gets up. This is our last piece of this year. Yaakov gets up, and it says that the sun shone for him. Just a funny thing to say. The sun shone for him, and he was limping. Okay, what does that mean? The pasuk says like this. Here we go. Vayizrach lo Hashemesh. Vayizrach lo Hashemesh. Rashi says as follows. Midrash Agadah. Vayizrach lo litzorcho, for him, l'rapot et salato, to heal his limp. Now you listen to the words of Rashi, very strange words of Rashi. Kamad tema. Rashi switches into Aramaic for two words. Kamad tema, as you would say. He was speaking Hebrew until now. Kamad tema, as you would say. Shemesh tzedakah umarpei bichnafeh. Quotes a piece of a pasuk in Malachi. The sun of righteousness and healing in its wings. He moves back into Hebrew. He says those hours that before the sun set early when he was in Parshas Vayetze, now it's rising early to heal him. Okay. The pasuk in Malachi that Rashi quotes, Malachi, you should probably know, you should know, is the last Navi. And Perek Gimel of Malachi is the last, so it's the third Perek of Malachi, which is the last Perek of Malachi, is the last Nevuah. It's all about Mashiach coming, the end of days, which is kind of appropriate for the final Nevuah. There's 24 psukim in the Perek, and this is Pasuk Chaf. And here's the Pasuk. I'll read in English. For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, when all the wicked people and all the evildoers will be like straw, and that coming day will burn them up, says Hashem, Master of Legions, so it will not leave them a root or a branch. And then comes the piece of a pasuk that Rashi quotes. V'zarcha lachem yirei, but for you, righteous ones, the sun will shine. Shemesh tzedakah, the sun of righteousness will shine. Umarpei bichnafeh, and it will heal with its wings. V'yatzatem ufishtem keglin marbek, and you will go out, and you will flourish like calves fattened. You will trample the wicked, for they will be ashes. The day I will bring about, says Hashem. Remember the Torah. And then Hinei Anochi Sholech Lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi Lifnei Bo Yom Hashem. The end of Malachi, where it talks about Mashiach. The Gemara in Nedarim. Oh man. In the Gemara in Nedarim. I just told me to wrap it this year. There's a little shas right there. Gemara Nedarim, Daf Chet Amud. Sorry. I should have had it in front of me. I knew I was forgetting something. Come on, Nedarim. Shkayach. Nedarim. Good. Thank you very much, Akiva. Nedarim Daf Chet Amud says as follows. Quotes this pasuk. Rish Lakish Amar Ein Gehenim L'Olam Haba. Rish Lakish says there's no Gehenim in the world to come. Ela Kadosh Baruch Hu Motzi Chamar Min Hatikah. Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to take the sun out of its sheath. Apparently the sun is sheathed, so it doesn't shine with its full strength now. It's going to take the sun out of its sheath. Tzadikim Mitrapim Ba. The greater power of the sun is going to heal the tzaddikim. Rishayim Nidonim Ba, and it's going to punish the Rishayim. Shenemar V'zarcha lachem yirei shemi shemesh mapei.
Well, we got a father and a son. That's the angst problem. We existentially feel like it's related to God, but that God is with us.
Why did Rashi switch into Aramaic for 2 words and say kama d'tema? I'd like to suggest that Rashi was alluding to the Gemara in Nedarim. Because otherwise, why would Rashi suddenly use 2 words in the Gemara, as you'd say? Just say kidiftiv, or mushkatu, or shamar Navi, or something like that. I'd like to suggest that Rashi is alluding to this, and he's also only quoting a piece of a pasuk. He knows we know something. Look up a pasuk. This pasuk, it's not. Rashi's using it here just to tell us what does it mean that the sun shone for him. That's the pshat problem he's trying to solve. There's also a deeper meaning to this pasuk. This pasuk is telling us it's about the sun shining for him at the end of days. It's about the sun shining for the tzaddikim. It's about for when all is said and done, after we've taken all our hits and we've limped and we've gotten better and we've limped and we've gotten better, when all is said and done, we're going to walk out in the sun and we're going to survive. And that's what the message of the Hanשה is. That's what the message of this whole thing is. That, as the Ramban said, that this whole scene is a foretelling of Jewish history. That they try to get us, they go below the belt, they try to cut off our ability to continue, but they can't. They can't. And we keep pushing through. It's the survival of the Jewish people. And how do we survive? By not taking in, by not ingesting forgetfulness, by not ingesting the Hanשה. As soon as we take in forgetfulness, it's the same thing as eating on Tisha B'Av. It's the same thing as not mourning anymore for the Beit HaMikdash. We don't mourn for the Beit HaMikdash, it's over. Once we start to forget, once we're ayef, Amalek attacks. When Amalek attacks, our supernatural ability to beat nature is no longer part of the world. It's no longer a part of us. It's severed from us. We no longer have the ability to beat the laws of nature, to beat the laws of history. So these things are all interconnected. This is the lesson of this. We are above nature, and that even though we get beaten down, we continue on. And how do we beat nature? We beat nature by not forgetting. Remember.